thanks, listeners. Today we have an interesting guest, and Nicole, thank you, Nicole, joining me, will introduce this interesting guest. Go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, absolutely. So I met my friend Abhishek in South Korea. And at the time, my friend Abhishek, or Abby, that's his short name, he was doing like podcasts as well, like helping people with like figure out like their spiritual journey. And he was also like a yoga teacher and still does like yoga teaching on the side. So he introduced me to Justin, and Justin's going to tell us more about like his journey, what he does for a living, and be able to share like more of his entrepreneurial journey too.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Mickey and Nicole. Yeah, I always love being on other podcasts, and it's been fun, kind of like catching up and listening to how you guys and how Mickey got this started, and how Nicole you sort of jumped in. And I feel like as the show's been going along, you guys have been catching your groove, and it. I don't know. There's something about when two co-hosts kind of have like a good rapport and good banter that kind of it's fun, and it sort of reminded me. It's like, oh yeah, I love interviewing and being interviewed, and sometimes those are my funnest, most best podcasts that I've ever done. And so it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. So yeah, a little bit about myself is it's always interesting when someone's like, what do you do? And sometimes I'm just like, well, how much time do we have? Because it's like my background, it's like currently I do coaching, although I kind of like to describe what I do more as like I like to teach people how to live a more fulfilling life where they can actually be following their passions and do what they like and are in relation with people that light them up and things like that. Like the term coach, sometimes I go back and forth because it's one of those, for the most part, anyone can call themselves a coach. And sometimes people are like, I tell people what I do and they're like, oh, you like a life coach? And I'm like, yeah, I guess. So I'm going forward, I'm going to say like, no, I'm not a life coach, because I feel like it's a little bit like if we were all dolphins and, we've been swimming around for decades and someone's like, hey, do you need a swim coach? It's like, no, I've been swimming for decades. It's like, as humans, we live life. We're living it whether we want it or not. It's more of like, how do we want to live it? So I'm playing around with like a life optimization mentor or something like that. Cause it's like, I've lived a lot of life and found ways to, I don't know. I think it's all about getting the most of it while we're here, because we kind of have the opportunity to do the same thing in, day out. And I'm sure probably each of you probably have like people you grew up with where they're still in the same town doing the same thing with the same people. And I know both of you have like been around the world and had all these amazing experiences. And I think it's all great. It's all just how do we want to do it? And I think it's, often when we start having like pains in life, whether it's like actual physical pains, and some of us start to get older and we don't listen, or it's just that pain of the heart going like, there's something more I want to do. And we either don't listen or we listen, but we're like, oh, I don't know how to even get started. That's sort of, who I like to work with. Somebody who's like ready to like, okay, I'm ready to do something different. I just don't even know where to start because I've been in a bubble of doing what I'm supposed to do, which have experience doing, because like my background really is not in coaching or mentoring. It's like my background's in electrical engineering. I have a doctorate in that, so did tons of schooling, and I'm always happy to talk to people out of like lots of schooling. I know Nicole, I know you have a master's, and I think I heard you in one of your podcasts, and it's like you'd help people figure out maybe how to do their master's or PhD abroad. But sometimes it's like not the best thing for some people. Sometimes it's just like another credential so that we can pretend like we're doing what we want, when really it's like we want to be traveling the world, or we want to be feeding people, or something that doesn't even require a doctorate, doesn't require a credential. And so yeah, I've still also worked in the tech space for like 14 years of various companies. So which is, I don't know, it's an interesting world, because it's like, to each of you, what's the whole point of technology and engineering? Like, what would you say? Like, what's supposed to be the point of those professions or those industries?
So if I jump in, so I have also a tech background. I mean, I'm not an engineer in hardware, but more in software and consulting with cybersecurity. But I made also recently a change to do something different. So that's why I can really align what I heard from you, the 4 minutes from your book. But before I go further in this, I like what you said that you don't want to be a coach, because I met so many other people who said they're a coach and they change what they're coach, a manifesting coach or whatever coach. And I analyzed also a little bit this kind of industry, the worlds, for some reason, and I met some people. So that's why I was really looking for the opportunity to have this conversation with you, to share also my experience I had when I contacted this kind of people. And I don't want to say something bad, but it was only they had a PhD in psychology, or they did some um, coaching certificate from some institute in the US. So that's why I like your approach, to be honest. And that's also, maybe if you stick more how you came to this, that makes you maybe more attractive for the people to actually have you as a mentor, if you tell this way.
Yeah.
That's
So
my stake on it.
yeah. So yeah. But I'll kind of touch a little bit on a little caution with coaches, because there are tons of amazing coaches out there. I've worked with plenty of them. I feel like it's great to work with a coach. It's I think it's a little bit of like buyer beware. It's, it's similar to almost like medical doctors. Because do you know what they call the person who graduates last of their class in medical school? Do you know what they call them?
No.
Doctor.
See, yes. There's also a doctor.
Yeah, so there's, but there's also a lot
It's
of
so
great medical
funny.
doctors. It's so it's go check, can they do, because a lot of times, like I've almost in the last few years avoided any new certifications or credentials, because what I've found is most people don't care. It's just like, well, can you help me? It's like, if you're in pain, if somebody can help you, do you care if they, went to the greatest school or not? It's like, they helped you. That's all that matters. But how I got into coaching, it's and I don't know if I've told this anywhere recently. It's definitely not in my book. Is the way I first got into it was really through the the pickup, learning how to date better world. Like I was newly working, newly out of finishing my PhD, and I think I had like worked for a year and I'd just gotten a promotion, and I was like, all right, I did the thing. I'm successful. I'm getting more money. I got a promotion, and I had no one to share it with. And then it's like I go online and I see an ad on Facebook, and it's about like, well, basically in humans, there's almost no way to distinguish like who's attractive, who's not anymore. It's almost like goldfish. Like goldfish, the only way the lady goldfish, a male goldfish is attractive is that there's other lady goldfish around. And so it's like, oh, read my book and I'll teach you how to. So I got this book. It's called like the Tao of Badass by this guy Joshua Pellissier. And he's since gone on to like other things that aren't dating, whatever. And so I read this book and it was just like, oh, all these things about bringing awareness to how you come out in the world of like, it's like how body language impacts how people perceive you, and how your language patterns impact how people are able to take your message in, and things like that, which at that time, which is now, what is that, like, I don't know, 12 years ago for me, was like a completely new concept. But I got on, this guy's email list, and I don't know, maybe some of you guys are on, different people's mailing lists, but one of the things they'll do is they don't just tell you about their things, but sometimes they're like, hey, I know this guy, that he's great. When you start getting into the industry of these types of things, it's like, oh, that's affiliate marketing. Like, I went and signed up for this guy's call, a coach named Michael Burnoff. And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's not just dating, he's like everything. And so I worked with that guy for a few years. And I don't know, it was just kind of like, oh wait, you can like help people not just with creating a gadget and then you hope maybe someday they'll use it for something that benefits their lives. You can actually kind of like more directly impact somebody's life. And so that was like where the seed for me of like getting into coaching came, was sort of like being coached myself. And I feel like often we're attracted to things that at some point we eventually want to like either we just want to do that same thing in the world, or we're like, okay, I need to do my own spin on it. And for me, I feel like I'm sort of doing my own spin. I'm still sort of figuring out because I don't know, both of you, I know you have lots of things going on. So it's sort of like, hey, I don't want to spend decades to figure out how to be happier. Like, what's the most efficient, easiest way to be happy? And then we realized that like you can be happy right now. That's just sort of what I've realized. But it's how do you practice doing that moment to moment, and how do you teach that in a way that people are going to get it? And I continue to try to find ways to refine that and teach it better to more people. But just sort of, it took me realizing that I had to learn that myself. And then, okay, now how do I bring that to more people in a way that's going to reach people that aren't going to be looking to date, or they're not like, oh, I want to work with a coach, but I feel like a lot of it's, in a lot of ways, information is free now, like YouTube, podcasts, you can learn anything, but it's really, who are we going to learn it from? That's really the magic. It's like the magic of this podcast isn't any information. It's that it's, Nicole and it's Mickey bringing the message and the special secret sauce that you guys bring. That's the magic. And I think, and teaching everyone else that they have their own magic and give that out to the world, that's what makes this whole weird blue ball of an experiment, I think, worth sticking around for day after day, because it's not always easy, right?
Yeah, it's true. So I have a question. So you had to take like a coaching course in order to become a coach, correct? And then how long did it take you to become like an actual like coach within that program?
So, so what I did initially was I did sort of some online programs that are more just about like is it just more about like getting going on doing things in life that are gonna like bring joy, or bring what. It's always funny, and I find a lot of in coaching is that a lot of times the marketing is to get you, they use what they want so that they could, at least to me, an ethical coach is going to use a little bit of what you want so they can also give you what you need. So like, for example, what got me to get that one book on improving dating techniques and things like that was, it's like, oh, I want to be, oh, I'm lonely, I want to like find a woman to date or be partnered with, or whatever that is. But what I was taught was, self-awareness of my body, language patterns, things like that's what I needed, right? We all need improved things like that. And so that was sort of the first course. And it wasn't until I did like after like a couple of years of some online, some phone, and then I did like this one in-person one. And then it was actually sort of like a follow-up program where he's like, okay, I've basically been doing all these techniques on you to get you to learn these things about yourself and talk to yourself in a better way. Now I will teach you the techniques. And this coach used neuro-linguistic programming, which I don't know if maybe you guys have heard of it, but maybe some of your listeners haven't. But it's basically my understanding is the premise is basically like the language patterns we use in our head will sort of dictate how we often have emotions, or when we have emotions, how we feel about them, and then how we're going to see ourselves and what we're going to believe. And then that's going to actually dictate how things show up in our life. Because often, and this is one of the things that I like to, teach people, is that often, and especially this time of year, because it's, end of November, getting into, New Year's, which is, resolution time, right? Which is like, I'm going to do something different. Like, okay, I'm finally going to quit that habit, or I'm finally going to, start going to the gym, or I'm finally going to save money. And it's something like 92% of people that attempt a New Year's resolution fail, right? And it's why do they fail? It's because all they try to do is just change at the surface level, which is like, oh, I don't go to the gym, I'll get a gym membership. I spend too much money, I'm going to stop. But the thing is, they haven't changed like who they are. Like the example I always love is Arnold Schwarzenegger and Mickey. Like when I was first listening to you, like, yeah, where are you originally from, Mickey?
I was born in Germany, and a lot of people compare me, or I remember, to Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he started also something new. I don't know if you know that. He started now a daily email blast about things, about health and mental stuff. Did you
Yeah.
saw that?
I haven't seen it, but I've seen some of his videos and things. Well, and he was governor of my state for a while. I got to vote for
Yeah, I
him.
know that
Yeah.
story.
But yeah,
And
like
I
you're
mean, he's a kind of my, I not say idol, but if someone said, I love when he said, don't listen to the naysayers. You can do it.
yeah, which is true. It's you gotta listen to yourself and then become the self that's going to get you whatever you want. And he was really a master of that. Like, he was born in Austria, right? And then he's like, I'm gonna be, the Mr. Olympia or whatever, the world's biggest bodybuilder. And so then for him, because he's like, well, what does that person do? They like eat the right foods, they're in the gym all the time, and then they glow like a champion. And then he did that, I think, 4 times over. And then he's like, you know what? Now I want to be the world's biggest movie star. And he became, had that persona, and he became good at changing who he was and the beliefs that were necessary to do that.
Mhm.
And so that ends up being and so neurolinguistic programming is like sort of one of the ways, there's all these modalities, and I kind of think like some of these coaching modalities are almost like world religions or spirituality. It's like there's ultimately a single way the world works, how people work, and they start to be very similar. So it's there's like a saying, there's many paths to the top of the mountain. So it's sort of like just find the trailhead that like seems like the least daunting to you, and they're all going to end up kind of ending up at the same place. But so going back to I took this, the advanced level where he starts teaching you the neurolinguistic programming techniques. And so I am certified in that. What did he? Yeah. So I'm certified in that. But other than that, and a couple coaching classes I did through one of my employers, like I'm also like a certified yoga teacher. I've done 500 hours of yoga teacher training. But I've almost gone out of my way. There's a ridiculous number of coaching certifications that people can get. And I've kind of gone out of my way to avoid that because I've basically wanted to focus more on like, well, how do I help people?
Right,
Because I could
exactly.
spend,
So
yeah.
I have a question for you. In terms of like your branding and like really representing like, who you are as a coach and so forth. Did you create like a website? Did you create like a LinkedIn? Like how did you really like let people know about like what you do for a living and that kind of thing?
So I have a website, justinwenck.com.
Mhm.
And also I'm on all the social medias, except for Twitter or X. I think I have a handle there, but I don't use it. It got weird. That platform got weird. And so I'm just like, I don't even want to dip my toe in. But
Yep.
so I'm Justin Wenck, PhD, and Wenck is WENCK
Mhm.
on all of those. Because my thing is like I want to make it as easy as possible for people to find me. For sure. And then I also have a podcast. So that's the Engineering, Emotions, and Energy podcast. But again, like
Mhm.
my name, it's a very unique name. There's maybe in Germany, there's more people that have my last name. It was great. I did live in Germany for 6 months. And they
Okay.
were like, because usually in the US, people are like, are you Winnick, Winkick, Schwuck? But
Right.
they're like, Ervank, so good to see you. And I'm like, oh, you guys just know how to say my name, at least in German.
Exactly.
Um, but yeah, I do a
Hi
lot of social.
guys,
Hey,
I'm
Mickey's
back.
back. He's
Sorry.
back.
Yeah, so I don't know if you uh I wanted to say about something about Arnold Schwarzenegger, then I got kicked out for some reason, internet problems again.
Well, I think you were going to talk about
So
his latest scandal, and he's got eyes everywhere, and that just got
no,
shut down.
no,
So don't, you were telling nice things, and
no.
that was okay, but I
I
think you were going to switch it, and it's like,
no, I just want to say what he inspired me was don't listen to the naysayers. That's only what I wanted to say.
yeah,
Don't listen to the naysayers and just believe in yourself. And if you see his story, he came from this little town in Austria and he made it to a governor of California. I mean, what kind of a story is that, right?
well, I think we like to say that's the American dream, right? To just you can
Yes.
come from anywhere of anything and become anyone. Yeah. Um, it's really good. Yeah. Let's see. I can't
And
because
yes, I mean, and yes, I was born in Germany. I don't know if that came through before I got disconnected.
oh yeah, I got that. Which town? Because I was just telling Nicole that I did briefly work in Germany for 6 months.
I was born in Mainz, and I lived around Mainz, Frankfurt, Wiesbaden, and I lived also around Düsseldorf, Duisburg.
And that's like the southwestern part, if I'm remembering my train
Mainz,
map.
Frankfurt is kind of in the middle, but in the western, yeah. And
Yeah.
then it's
Okay.
all on the River Rhine. In Düsseldorf is Köln, Rhine. That's all on the Rhine Valley.
Oh yeah, where there's like a castle like every mile or kilometer along the river. It's just like
Yes, yes.
ridiculous. Yeah, we're in California. We have a castle that was built by William Randolph Hearst, a big back in like the early 1900s. He did these. He was actually like the first person to start fake news. Actually, like he'd kind of
Oh,
say stuff that
really?
would be beneficial for his empire and things like that. But he had a big castle built in on the Central Coast, which is, I don't know, Nicole, did you ever hear about it?
No, I
So the
don't.
thing is, I've only been to like San Francisco and Los
Yeah.
Angeles, but I only went for like a short period of time. I went with my family one time and I went to see my friends. Where exactly are you based in California?
So right now I live in an area called Pacifica. So it's just like southwest of San Francisco, like right on the ocean.
Oh,
So it's
okay,
Oh,
pretty
very
wow.
quiet. Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And you know Abhishek from California, correct? You guys were working as yoga teachers?
No, I don't, because yeah, I don't think he's taught yoga for a while, and I
Mhm.
haven't taught. I was at a retreat and I did one yoga class, but it was like the first time teaching in like over a year or two.
Mhm.
It's one of those things I did yoga teacher training, and then sort of after I did my second one, I was like, yeah, I don't want to do this as like a career. It's like maybe if I ran an in-person retreat, I would do like a little special offering, but I'm like,
Right.
I don't want to. I like to be able to sort of work a little bit from anywhere. I really enjoy that
Yeah,
freedom.
you like want to be able to have like that like flexibility to be able to like work remotely from anywhere you please. If you want to go to Germany, you can. If you want to go to Asia, you can. So it doesn't matter, nothing's gonna like really hold you back.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so
That's
about
awesome.
California. So I was there recently, but not more in Long Beach, California, but it's south of LA,
Oh yeah.
at least. And I was because I got hired for to be on a conference in the travel industry. And before I spent time for work in, I had a project north of San Francisco for a small credit union for a couple of days, and so that was my tech life where I traveled around the world, so all over the U.S., Singapore, Manila, Africa, so all over
Wow.
Europe. And I lived also, grew up in Germany, went to the US, lived in Michigan, went to Canada, lived in Malta for a couple of months, and now I'm in Spain.
So
That's
Mickey,
my story.
I'm curious, out of all of those places, which area was like the biggest growth opportunity, which could have been like the biggest challenge, but like you look back and go like that had the biggest shift in who I am as a person. Was it
Okay.
yeah, is what location where you're just like that really was a big shift for
Okay,
for
I have to
you.
tell you, it's Madrid because
Really?
Yeah,
That's
that
amazing.
me too.
that the I mean, it started with Barcelona because I lived also in Barcelona before, but Madrid changed me in a way. I don't know why, what happened, but I don't know. And one day I have to tell the story, but it's not done, this story. So that's why I'm waiting.
It's still you're still writing the chapters of how Madrid
Yes.
trains Mickey.
And I remember I don't, a lot of people told me to write a book, but I said, I do podcasts.
Yeah.
Well, that's how I was for the longest time, and then at some point it was like, oh, it's time to write a book, time to get the message out in other ways.
Yeah, you have to convince me for this because, I mean, that was one of my she was not a coach. She was really a therapist. She told me that also. I should write a book.
Because
Anyway,
because Nicole was asking me a little bit earlier about websites and social media, and I was kind of going over how I kind of have all of them, because I think there starts to be when we do have like a message or something that we really want to share with the world, there's a little bit um of if we want to share it with the most people or the right people, it's there's a little bit of like we go to meet them where they're at, right? Like I'm
right.
like I also have like a really like spiritual side to myself, and we started with yoga, but it's since gotten into other forms of like spirituality and things like that. But I remember earlier on, it's like going to a yoga class, and somebody's all like, and now let your chakra like begin to glow and let forth the blue healing energy of Gaia. And I was just like, what the hell are they talking? Like, this is just we and I know exactly what they're talking about, but I'm like, you're just talking to the other woo-woo people. Like, you're not helping anybody that needs to. So that's why I always like to teach these concepts sort of like in as plain a language as possible and things like that, and try to find explanations so that somebody who's like even thinks that stuff is crazy, bananas, whatever, but just like, okay, well, can explain it to you in a way that like can actually improve your life. Because that's what all this stuff is designed for, is like, well, can it make your life better, and can you be better with people? And yeah, so sometimes like it's like, okay, so for me it was like time to write a book. I think that's where that story was
Yeah.
going, is like there's people that only like to read books, they're not going to listen to podcasts or whatever it is, and it's like, okay,
It's
time to get
interesting that
those
you
people.
say that because I lived in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and that's also like the biggest growth opportunity besides Madrid. But I think it's because I saw so many digital nomads, people working from wherever, like nothing really bounded them. And I was just so used to like the same, 9 to 5. Okay, leave your home, go to the office, come back. So I never knew it was possible to like really work remotely until I was in Chiang Mai and I went to like a lot of like digital nomad conferences. I met people like digital like a lot of like cafes and a lot of co-working spots, and I realized this is actually possible. So I think it's also interesting too as well. I met a lot of people like very spiritual, very much into like their whole
Oh yeah.
yoga and then taking whatever drugs they were taking. But it was definitely a big growth opportunity. And the same thing with Mike. Same thing with Mickey too as well. I think Madrid is an incredible place. You get to meet people from like all walks of life. There's like different areas for people from like India, Pakistan, Honduras, and it's just a huge cosmopolitan city. I would definitely compare it to like New York, but way cheaper, obviously. And it's just a great hub. Like if you want to travel to like Rome or Germany, like it's really easy. And it's just a beautiful place with the architecture. I just can't get over the architecture. I'm from Chicago, but
Oh,
architecture,
nothing.
yeah,
Yeah,
architecture
nothing
here.
beats European architecture.
Thank
Like, tell me
you.
what.
You might be the only
Yeah.
person, well, maybe Nikki too as well, but none of my friends agree. They're like, oh, Chicago's so beautiful. I'm like, it's beautiful in its own way, but I don't see the beauty anymore. Like I was working downtown over the weekend. I work as a brand ambassador. And so I was like, this is it. This is nothing to me. So yeah, Madrid is incredible. And same with Budapest and Mainz. Mainz was incredible. I was in Mainz last year.
Nice.
Yeah.
The city where I was born.
Yes, I was there. Yes. When I went to
Oh my
I
God.
went to like the
How,
Christmas market in Nuremberg. So yeah. Mhm.
yeah. So, I mean, why I choose Madrid, to let me mention that, was more what happened to me. But of course, what Nicole mentioned is also true. But I think it's because Madrid has a certain elevation. It's the highest capital in Europe, and it's something special about it. And I have heard that from so many other people, not only Nicole. I mean, I can tell you five, six, seven more people who tell me Madrid, that's the place for us.
Mhm. Yeah, I think there's definitely something about when you find like there's something about the geography or the power of just the nature of a place, and then when that's like compatible with where you're at, that it just great things happen really quickly. Like I think there ends up not being any mistake sometimes of like why certain cities have certain things, and then there's usually like some really stunning geographical stuff, like whether the water or mountains or volcanoes Like, like just, well, the San Francisco Bay Area, it's like, it's the tech mecca of the world. But
Correct.
also it's also very, naturally powerful, like some of the most stunning like hikes and features and, a giant bay. Like, there's just a lot of powerful nature happening too. And it's,
Right.
I find it very interesting how those some more and more often go together. And it's, you start getting like the woo-woo energetics of, the world and people. And it's sort of like, okay, it starts to make sense, but there's
Yeah, it's
definitely,
interesting that you say that because I was in Lisbon just like for a week
Mhm.
in August, and I was with my friend, and I felt like Lisbon reminded me a lot like San Francisco too as well. In terms like they had the bridge, that we had like the water. It was very like coastal, I would say, and cheaper obviously, but
Yeah.
beautiful place overall. I like San Francisco. It's great. Mhm.
Yeah. And yeah, I haven't been to Lisbon yet. I'm probably due. I haven't been to Europe for like 10 years. I'm probably due for a Europe trip at some point
Yeah,
here to
yeah.
go.
With this episode with Justin Wenck, but there will be another one. So just thanks for listening and keep looking for the new one. Bye.